right, so welcome back to MCVC. This episode's going to be a little bit different. It is not going to be about gaming. I know, sad face. Just kidding. It's going to be even more interesting. We're going to be talking about paranormal shit. So, like ghosts and stuff like that. So we're going to just kind of talk about some of our personal experiences with the other side. And what's he looking at? Obviously the other side, Collin. So
do you have a visual demonstration for this episode, or
what if I just turned it and there was like a ghost right there?
And all of a sudden it's just like,
yeah, what up, dude?
I know Mike from a few years back. He told me you guys are doing this episode. I figured I'd stop in.
At this point, I'm pretty sure if anything is haunting me, they feel like I haunt them. Okay, my ghosts are long gone. No,
I mean, if you think about it, they're the ones that have to see you naked.
Exactly, and I can't see them. They can't even get payback on me unless they want to make themselves appear. But I've seen every horror movie alive. So, no horror movies alive, but in my life, I've seen almost every horror movie. I love horror. But anyways, I would love to know some of your experiences about the paranormal.
Yeah, so as you kind of mentioned, like just diving into some personal experiences, I'm going to touch on just things I've read about, videos I've watched. There's a lot of conspiracy within the paranormal universe just because people hear paranormal, they think ghosts. Paranormal could technically apply to like Bigfoot or aliens,
psychic people,
or just like anything that you're tapping into, either like you said, the other side, or just
anything
something
beyond normal.
Yeah, exactly. Paranormal, literally
paranormal.
just exactly. So, I was just kind of just diving into some experiences I've had. I was actually just thinking about, because I was just like trying to jog my memory quick, like before this episode started. That way I knew I had a couple examples on hand. And the few I could think of, one in particular was at your house. And I think there's actually one or two at your house, but the one I'm thinking of now is we were hanging out. I can't remember if it was like middle school, like 7th, 8th grade, maybe even freshman year. I don't know if you had moved yet at the time.
I think I left the summer of 8th grade, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so it would have been before that. But anyway, it was you and I don't know if anybody else was there yet, but we were waiting for Fryvault to show up. Okay, and so we're hanging out or whatever, and then all of a sudden the doorbell rings, and we go to the door, and I think either I got the door or like your mom got the door, or if like Lake or somebody else was there got the door. You were like just kind of sitting there like in shock, and I like remember you didn't get the door because you were just sitting there in shock. And I opened the door and there's nobody there, so I'm like, okay, that's weird. Like, kind of peeked out, maybe thought he was playing a prank, and you're like, dude, I've lived here for X amount of years. That doorbell's been broken ever since I've lived
doorbell.
Here. Yeah, I don't have a doorbell. It's broken.
It wasn't broken. It literally did not exist anymore. All the wiring was pulled. For anyone who wants to say, oh, maybe it's faulty wiring, no. There's no doorbell
like
on that house.
But the button is still there on the outside of the house. Because I remember like the first couple times I came to your house to hang out, I'd press it, and then I remember you saying, "Oh yeah, it doesn't work." Like
it's all gutted.
It's all gutted. But yeah, it was like, and the weird thing was, it wasn't like a very just like regular doorbell. It was very like eerie and like it sounded broken. Yeah, it was just like, and it was just like grindy. But like you could tell it was a doorbell. And I just remember like you freaking out about, that doorbell's never gone off. It doesn't even exist. So there's that one. And then the other one I can think of is we were on your computer, off your parents' computer or what it was. But basically, I can't remember what we were looking up. Probably just like stuff about video games or just some videos on YouTube. And you might have to like kind of fill in the gaps.
No, I got you. Yeah, all that stuff still lingers with me. So
yeah. But basically, like a bunch of like pop-ups and stuff came up, and there's a lot of it was, some of it was like pornographic, but some of it was like very gruesome, like just like even stuff that we would see now, like it would kind of like take us back.
Take a step back. Like what the fuck?
Your skin crawl a little bit. And
that happened to Brandon too. It also happened to Brandon.
Oh yeah, right? That's right.
Yeah, it happened to me also several times.
Yeah, But yeah, I was just there for that one time that it happened. But yeah, no matter how much we tried to close out of everything, it didn't work, and it got to the point where I think you just unplugged everything, and then we just left it be, and we didn't touch it for the rest of the night. Otherwise, aside from that, just being like in your old house period, there's just something not right about it. Like really, the living room, like literally, like maybe like a fucking like 10 by 10 foot area of your house, it felt okay. If you're sitting,
it was literally the living room was the only safe spot.
Yeah, if you're sitting on the couch, like playing video games or watching TV or hanging out, you were fine. The second you got to the kitchen, it was kind of a dated kitchen. It was kind of weird. And then upstairs, that's just a whole other dimension that's where the hot spot was. But
exactly. Actually, if you don't mind me just kind of going full course story on this one.
Yeah, go for it.
So, and let me just emphasize, I actually believe in paranormal stuff now. I believe, because who am I to question, you know? I was a very fact-based kid, though. I was religious then, actually, which is kind of ironic. I'm not so religious now, and that's not to say anything. Doesn't mean I'm atheist or anything. And if you are, I don't have anything against anyone who is out there who's listening. But I was very religious as a kid, but I was also very fact-based. I hated anything I couldn't see, and I refused to believe all that shit. I thought it was people's. I really leaned into psychology. My friends used to call me a psychologist. Like I literally I lean more towards the mind, and I believe the mind caused a lot of issues. And obviously as myself as a kid, I used to chalk up a lot of this stuff as a kid, but when it started to impact everyone around me is when I started to have these moments where it's like, is this actually in my head? Because they're seeing it. So to just kind of start it off, when we first moved into that house, it kind of seemed weird. It was an older house, and it wasn't anything like, it just looked like a house. It wasn't like, you know, the creepy mansion on some hill, like lightning strikes every 5 minutes. It's just a house on Q Street. There's nothing too crazy about it. So once we're all settled in, my sister actually, so there's 2 bedrooms upstairs. There's a bigger room, and then there was a smaller room. My sister wanted the smaller room while we were growing up. She was 5 years older than me, so, you know, obviously, and, you know, sister, she gets their way. So she took that room, and the weird thing is she started having nightmares in that room. She started having weird, terrible nightmares at night. She used to freak out, and she didn't want to be in that room anymore. She just did not like it. And so I was like, you know what? I'll take the smaller space. I don't care. I'll like it. And a weird thing about this was our animals used to, like our dogs we'd take out, they used to stare up at that window all the time, and I used to not think anything of it. I was just like, you know, dogs are stupid. That was my logic. Dogs are dumb. And so I started sleeping in there, and, you know, obviously this is early 2000s. I wasn't, you know, the richest guy in the world, so I'm still rocking one of those old school big old box TVs, baby. I mean, I was happy to have a TV that I could put in my room. It was just our old ass one. But like that bitch had an antenna on it for a bit. So when I moved in there, everything felt fine at first. You know, little Mike running around, lottie fucking da, playing with his toys. You know, living life up. And then things started getting weird at night. I would start having this reoccurring nightmare of these 3 shadows, and it was weird because there wasn't too much like physical definition, and it didn't necessarily seem like the creepiest thing in the world. It wasn't. It literally was just like I'd see these 3 shadows on my wall. And to kind of give a brief breakdown of how my room looked, it was small, so it won't take long. So I had my bed, and you know how like some houses are built with the wall where it's like that, and it's like, yeah, it's got that corner piece to it. My bed was underneath that corner piece. The 3 shadows would appear going up the wall, up that corner piece, and like, so I'm looking straight up at this, and there's these 3 shadows, and when I would step off the bed and look to the side, now they're on that side of that wall. It's like they're following me. And one night, I actually thought I was having a nightmare. I thought I was still asleep. I thought I was lucid dreaming, because I was like, well, I've learned about lucid dreaming, baby. I'm just really immersed in my nightmare. So I see these 3 shadows, and I get off my bed, and my TV just goes staticky. And I think it was in that moment I realized I was awake, because my TV was just kind of like, you know how old school commercials were, and it just kind of cut to static. And I don't know why that's a staple of the horror genre. Maybe it's just because so many accounts of it, and I think it has something to do with like paranormal entities create something to do with the electrical magnetic field and distort technology around them. And it literally could have just been my TV going to shit at that point too. And that's why I will tell it part of this, but I won't correlate the two. It could have just been happenstance. But the thing is, my door, like, I never locked my door. My door didn't lock easy. I freaked out. Obviously, I'm like, what the fuck? There's shadows on my wall. My TV's staticky. I'm going to die. So I ran to go open my door, and my door would not budge, no matter how hard I pulled. And, like, obviously, I'm a kid. I'm not the strongest thing in the world. Even the weakest adult could bitch slap the shit out of me. But I don't know why that's my example of it. But I'm pulling, and this door will not budge, and I'm just freaking out. And it just felt like the static was getting louder and louder. And finally, the door just gave, and I fell on my ass. And I got up and I just ran out of the room. I was freaking out. I ran to my parents. They're like, what's going on? And I explained the situation to them, and that's when my sister kind of told me her side of things and how what she experienced. It was completely different. She was just having nightmares, but mine just got very specific. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm just overreacting. I ate too much sugar. I stayed up late. I don't know. I was very grounded as a kid. I had a very old soul. So I was like, whatever. And so I just stayed in that room. And the shadows started coming again for another week or two, and then they ceased. And I was like, it's done. It's good. And then one day, let me note that this is the afternoon. I'm not up late. I'm not smoking crack at 10, nor now. So I'm sitting there on my bed, and all of a sudden, the bed just like three creases, like three people just sat down simultaneously on it, but you can't see anything. So, like, three creases just happened at the end of my bed, and I felt my bed shift, and it freaked me the fuck out, obviously. And I was like, nope, I'm not staying in that room anymore. And at this point, that's when my sister left for college, so I took the big room. I was like, yep, I'm done with that room. By that point, this room has been established as kind of the nightmare room. This is when you guys were starting to hear about it from me. And I told you about what Brandon Champagne's dad told me, right?
No. You might have, but
yeah, I want to talk to him about it again because I want to know if he was just fucking with me, because he gave me a ride back home from wrestling practice once, and when we got there, he's like, "This is the house you live in?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, that house is haunted, right? This is an adult telling a kid this. So it's not like I'm not the only, and I want Brandon to talk to his dad about this and see if he remembers it, and I would love to hear about it. If he's like, I don't fucking remember, I'll be like, all right. But no, his dad told me that, and I was like, well, that's great to know. Thanks. So obviously now there is that thought in my head. But and obviously, I'm not the only one feeling this way at this point. My parents are even skeptical. And my dad, my dad, he's not the kind of person to be skeptical about shit like that. My dad would rather just tell you to fuck off, even if you're a ghost. But so I moved into this big room, and everything was good. Everything was fine. Oh, God. I actually spaced on one moment that happened before this. And, of course, it has to be with one of those staple or what's the word I'm looking for? One of those big things you see used in horror. My sister loved porcelain dolls. I don't know if you remember ever coming over and seeing her porcelain dolls. If not, it's okay.
No, I don't remember personally.
Your memory's saved on that. So she had a fuck ton of them for no reason. And I was like, I get it, you're a girl, but do you need all these? They're creepy. I fucking hate them. And this one, I will still always say to this day, it's probably just my imagination. And I don't know why I used to do this, but when you went up my stairs, there was a little closet right there. Mm-hmm. And I used to hang out in that closet and, like, essentially destroy shit and try to put it back together. I was better at the former than the latter, so I broke a lot of shit. But so I'd just sit in there and just tinker with shit. Like, my dad's walkie-talkie broke, so I stripped it apart one time. And I was sitting in there. My sister failed to tell me she moved her porcelain dolls in there. And, like, I saw them, whatever, it freaked me out, but then I was like, yeah, they're just dolls. And I'm just sitting there. All of a sudden, she has this one. I will never forget what this fucking thing looks like, because it doesn't look creepy, but it still feels creepy that it's just sitting there. It was in a wedding dress. It had, like, bird net hair. It had those dead doll eyes they all fucking have. And I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, I felt like I was being watched. And I just, like, look over, and as I'm like tinkering with this this little walkie-talkie that's all busted, and I look over and all of a sudden I just see this thing kind of sitting up, and its like hands are like, it's like this, just sitting like this. Yeah. All right. Sitting like this, like just hands in its lap, and like obviously fixed fingers, so it's kind of like awkward, like sitting like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the first thing I noticed was the hands, and then I look up, and all of a sudden, like, I swear to God, the head moved. I swear to fucking God, but I tell you that I did not have enough time to stick around to confirm it because I was already halfway down the fucking staircase after it happened. Because it was one of those split moments where it was kind of like, it wasn't like that. It didn't do like the Exorcist, like wow, like head spinning like a fucking top. It was just a minor, like little, like that. Like it was like a, like it was just a slight turn to like focus right on me, and I was like, never going back in there. No. I was like, we need to burn this fucking place down. But anyway, so that since I moved into this big room, I stopped fucking around with that closet. I had all my stuff. I just tinker in there. I was sitting on my bed again. Now I'm in the 8th grade. I'm starting to mature a little bit more. This is getting closer to when we're moving out, and I haven't had an experience in a fair amount of time. I'm sitting on my bed, and I was like, all of a sudden I got really cold. My heat was on. I got really fucking cold. I started freezing. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I couldn't move. I was just like, why? What is going on? I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, one dent happened in the base of my bed, just like it used to. It just dented into the bed, and I was like, okay. I got up calmly. I don't know why I got up calmly. I thought maybe like, oh yeah, I'm just going to make the ghost think I'm nonchalant about this. Just do it. Yep, going for a jog. And then I took off running for the stairs. And I could have tripped myself. I don't know. I feel like I got pushed from behind. Because, I mean, I was a clumsy kid, but when I'm running for my life, I get fucking pretty balanced, I'll tell you that. And it felt like something hit me in the back, and I fell down the stairs. And I'm not the only one this happened to. My mom got pushed down once, too. I ended up sleeping on my couch downstairs for a week. And after that, things just got really, like, it seemed like things were getting more and more active. And one time, there was, like, a shadow that crossed by one of the windows on the second by that old room, and my dogs never stopped looking at that fucking window, dude. And like, yeah, there's those experiences when we're on the computers that was really fucked up. We'd see so many gruesome shit. I don't know if it was like those websites were not secure and like they're just like we're getting hacked by some sick fucker, but no, those things would be disgusting. Like they were beyond, and there wasn't like a pop-up button to click it out either. That was the fucked up part. It looked like just like a picture. It'd just be like a picture with no like closed window, and it was so fucked up. And it's just like we're little kids. We're looking at this like, you know what I mean? Like that's not okay. And so after all that, and you already covered most of the other part with the doorbell, and like we reiterated the whole other thing. I thought I got like away from all this, and there was one other moment that happened there. It's not scary. It was more like, whoa. So one time I was laying on my bed, which my mom failed to tell me a woman died on, but an old lady walked through my room, and it was just weird. It was so ominous. I thought I was sleeping. I was like, man, that's weird. I'm dreaming about old women. I'm one of them guys. So like this old lady just kind of like drifts through the room. And I was like, well, this is going to be fun when I wake up. About 5 minutes pass, and I'm like, I'm awake. And I kind of went into that moment of like, and I'm not going back to bed. There is no sleep tonight. I got up and I started looking around because my curious ass, for whatever reason, was like, well, she's an old woman. What could happen? But maybe someone's escaped from the assisted living facilities or a retirement home, or maybe this is like grandma I never met. My ass not thinking about it. It's like fucking midnight. Like why would my grandma be over at midnight that I've never met? So I'm just walking around and I didn't see anything else. And one issue I used to have there too is like I could never close my eyes. I hated closing my eyes because it always felt like something was right by you upstairs. And I hated it. I could not do it, and I hated trying to sleep because it always just felt like something was fucking watching you. And so when we moved, after all this shit, the first thing that happens, and I was like, at this point, starting to think I'm just crazy, but everyone else is like, they've seen it, they've heard it. This is not just my account and your account. There are 4 to 5 other people. It's like I can't cause psychosis issues in other people. You know, if maybe we're all crazy, but it's all that water in Pound and Coleman.
Yeah.
It makes you see shit. No, but when I get to my new house, we live in this duplex in Pier. I'm like, oh, sweet. We have this furnished basement. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I've always wanted to have a basement bedroom. So I move all my shit into the basement. I'm like getting all hyped up. And then the first time I lay on my bed, all of a sudden I hear just like behind me through the wall, I hear. And I was like, oh, okay. Got up calmly because for whatever reason, I think you got to be calm in those situations, like it's a hostage situation or something. And I proceeded to sprint up the stairs again. This time they get pushed because I think they probably thought they would just help me. But no, and I did not want to sleep down there anymore after that. I was like, nope, moved all my shit upstairs, and I stayed upstairs after that point because that, no. And then we had one moment where my door got thrown open, but that could have just been anything. I won't say that one's part of this same issue. But there is one more defining moment that really stands out for me. And this was while I was in the Army. Me and my buddy were in my barracks room, and we were sitting there, and I've told him some of my stories about it, and nothing's really happened. Like, there's been a few moments here and there that kind of were, like, freaky, but nothing, like, as definitive as this. So we're sitting there, and we're playing a PlayStation 2 because we were buying a bunch of old consoles. You know, gaming's always been part of our lives. Like, I surround myself with other gamers. We love to go back and just play other shit. We were playing one of those old Marvel games, one of the X2 Apocalypse game or something like that. And so we're sitting there, or not. I think that's whatever. The name doesn't matter. It was an old X-Men game. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden I start smelling like rotten eggs, and I'm like, I was like, did dude just fart? Like, I was looking at myself like, did my buddy just rip ass in my room? And I was like, oh, man, this is probably my imagination. And I was like, man, this is me just freaking myself out because of prior experiences. And but the thing is, we just cleaned our room, by the way. We just had a room inspection. Our room is spotless. It's not dirty. There's nothing in there that I can smell like that. And he looks at me, and all of a sudden he's like, bro, did you just shit yourself? It's like, no. Like, why would I do that? We're gaming. He's like, bro, it smells like rotten ass eggs in here. And I was like, yeah, I didn't think you could smell it. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was having like a stroke or something. He's like, bro, you know what else smells like rotten eggs? And he says sulfur, and all of a sudden my door just opens. And it's like, he's like, bro, your ass is haunted. He got out of my room. He's like, I don't want to be in here anymore. He's like, gotta get yourself a new roommate. And I was like, dude, come on. But yeah, after that, that was like the last experience I've ever had with anything. But in my own personal experiences, I always love hearing other people's stories. And I don't, and I've heard it all, man. I've heard some of the most benign things to the craziest things, but I choose to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if it's not in a moment where you're trying to get attention. It's not like and that's why I wanted to share our stories, because I barely ever talk about this anymore unless someone asks. It's like, oh, do you have any paranormal experiences? I'll be like, well, this is what I've been through. It's not one of those things like I need people to hear my story. Like, I just think it's always fun to talk about that stuff. And you can definitely tell those who are just trying to create a story, because honestly, truth is stranger than fiction. I can't make this shit up. I'm not creative enough to come up with this when I'm fucking 10. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even thinking about this. I'm thinking about my fucking weird-ass mustache that's growing in at 10. That's what I was thinking about. I was like, why am I hitting puberty like a fucking train right now? I'm 10. I don't even know what's going on with myself. And I got all this weird shit happening. So, honestly, I love to hear other people's stories. I love to dwell into not just the spiritual side of things either. I love to hear about because I don't chalk everything up to ghosts. I believe that there are things that we don't understand in the world. Do I say it's supernatural abilities or powers or anything? No, I don't label anything. I just know for a fact, a definitive fact, there are things we do not understand in this world. And they may always be that way. That's why there's always people studying and researching. That's why we have scientists. That's why we have people constantly searching for more or what is out there. We don't know shit about massive parts of our ocean. We don't know a lot of shit about space. Like, there's shit we don't even understand here on our Earth still. Is there a good chunk we know? Yeah. We have learned so much. There is so much knowledge out there to gain and to expand on. But why is this such a recurring theme? You know what I mean? why has this been around since almost like the dawn forever? Like, there's been accounts of paranormal shit that's even like that. Everything's accounted for to like aliens or other shit like this. It's like there's things we still don't understand throughout history and even moving into the future. So I love to chalk all that up into that paranormal category, that cryptid category, all that comes together into the unknown. And I love to like hear other people's unknowns. And I would love to know if you have any more, if you even heard any other stories, or even if there's like an episode of something you've seen that you would love to talk about.
Yeah, I have a few things to kind of touch on. I just wanted to start with kind of my experiences with your house, just because obviously, like,
that was our hub. That was our main spot.
Yeah, so I have a couple other, I guess, instances I kind of want to touch on. And again, for the longest time, I was a very skeptical person on like the paranormal, Bigfoot, aliens, all that kind of stuff, and I have a very more open mind a lot of this stuff. And kind of like you said too, how you had a very religious upbringing, and I did too. And like I'm still like have a strong foundation in like what I believe in, but I'm a lot more open minded. So rather than like this is the way I think, this is the religion I believe in, this is like everything to a T, like up until the age of maybe 16, 17, that's how I thought. And then kind of getting into the stages of adulthood, becoming more mature, being able to think for myself. And then
for anyone who's wondering, we used to worship the spaghetti monster.
No. Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about the spaghetti monster. Fuck.
Actually, I was a Jedi Knight. No. Continue. Sorry, I just had to give that.
I forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, it's just over the past like 5-6 years of my life, I've been more willing to have those open conversations with people, whether it's religion, about paranormal experiences, kind of just, I'm one of those people where I don't want to think one way for the rest of my life, because what's the point of that? I could sit here and say, oh yeah, this is the way I think, and as soon as somebody else opens their mouth, oh well, I have a different opinion, I'd be like, no, I've already said, this is what I'm sticking with. Like, no, that's fucking dumb.
You limit yourself.
Yeah, you limit yourself, and there's a lot, like, it's shaped me to be a better person in a lot of ways. And like I said, a lot of that just comes to being open-minded. But anywho, diving into some experiences again. One being, you remember Cody Rosner, right?
Yep. Okay. Can't forget him. I have a funny story with him that's not paranormal related.
Yeah. So, we were at his house. I can't remember if it was for his birthday or if we were just hanging out, but I don't know if you had ever been to his house, but he had a very open backyard, and about 50, 60 yards, it turned into a cornfield. And then it was a massive cornfield behind his house. And I believe it was Cody and I, and then like maybe Tyler Rosner, Blaine, Jimmy, kind of just like a few, there's like probably 4 or 5 of us at the most. And we were having a fire in the backyard. And we were hanging out or whatever. And then like as the night went on and it got later and later, like the backyard became foggy and kind of like just had that eerie kind of feel to it.
Silent Hill style.
Yeah. And then at one point, and I can't remember if I saw it or somebody else saw it, but at the edge of the cornfield, there was a set of eyes that you could see. And they were like
just eyeballs, just like, or was there like or is it in the dark, like glowing eyes?
It was like you couldn't see like a figure. You couldn't be like, that's an animal, that's a person. Like, because like I said, it was foggy, so like it was kind of just like distorted. And
that's the only thing that could stand out was its eyes.
Yeah, and this is 10, 12 years ago now. So obviously, as time goes on, this memory fades a little bit more. Yeah, but I just remember 2 like eyes, and they weren't like red eyes, so it wasn't like, oh, that's the devil. That's the devil. We're done. So, but it wasn't like, in like growing up in the Northwoods, we're very familiar with seeing deer eyes, raccoons. You see your dog, you see your cat. This was not any. Yeah, this was not one of those moments where I was like, oh, that's probably what that is. It was very like human eyes are not reflective, and that's something that, in watching it paranormal videos that I've watched, people are always like, oh, that's just a guy or whatever. But it's like, but these people always point out, it's like, but the person's eyes were reflective. So it's like something's up with it. So like basically
interesting fact for you. Not to cut. I'm sorry. I just want to get to. I think there was one time when human eyes are reflective. I think it's if you have cataracts. I think it's a very I can't. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure, but like, come on, who's gonna have cataracts standing out in the woods? During a foggy night. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, I forgot about that. Yeah, cataract. I think that is the only time your eyes can be reflective. But yeah, it was just one of those moments where it was just like a figure. Again, couldn't tell if it was human, creature, what it was, but you could just tell that like the you see eyes, and like I said, you could tell, oh, it's a deer, it's a bear, it's whatever. But you could just tell right away that you couldn't pinpoint what that was. So that was just like one of those eerie, like paranormal moments, and obviously none of like we were too young and scared to go explore and see what it ended up being. So, but all of us saw it. Like we all confirmed it. Like it was like for I think a minute or two that we saw it, and then slowly like either the fog took it over, or like it backed into the cornfield, or it just disappeared in the air, whatever it was. But
that's creepy.
So yeah, that was one of those moments. Another one, and I've talked about it a few times with how we're
still thinking that would give me fucking chills, dude. I don't. I couldn't even. I hate seeing shit like that. Like, no. Yeah. Because like, what are you gonna do? Especially at that age, what are you gonna fucking do? Running? Like,
yeah,
you don't know what that thing is.
Exactly. And like
capture like 5 seconds.
Was perfect. The setting was perfect too, because like how I said, it was foggy, it was eerie. If maybe the fog wasn't there complete at all, we would have been able to tell exactly what it was. But it was almost as if it used the fog. It knew like that it was distorting our vision of it, that we couldn't tell exactly what it was. But anyway, kind of like within the paranormal realm, but switching gears a little bit. And I had mentioned a few times so far this episode about like mythical creatures and just like aliens and that kind of thing. One instance that I had, I can't remember if it was with my sister or if I was by myself, but I don't think it was like any of us guys were hanging out. This was just a regular day. It was like, it wasn't dark out, but it was like close to getting dark out. And I was always obsessed with watching these like Sasquatch, Bigfoot videos and like TV shows and stuff like that. And one of the biggest ways that these people try to communicate with them is by knocking. They take a piece of wood, bang it against a tree, and apparently that's how they supposedly communicate, like primates. And I was like in the back behind my parents' house, and I was probably like a few hundred yards away, but like far enough that I wasn't that close to the house, but like close enough to the house that if something happened that I'd be able to get back there in a hurry. And all the time what I would do is I would knock on the trees just because I'm like, oh, I'm Bigfoot hunting. And like I said, it was like right before dark. Obviously, if it was dark out, I wouldn't have been wandering out in the woods behind my house at night just because who the fuck does that? But anyway, I remember I knocked
with reflective eyes.
Yeah. I remember I knocked on the tree, and because it's like open and it's kind of a valley behind my house, there was an echo. So, and I always knew it's like knock, knock, couple seconds, knock, knock. And like I was getting ready to knock again, and I heard knocks back, and it was either I had knocked 3 times, and the weird one I heard back was 2, or I knocked twice and I heard 3 back. So it's not like people could be like, oh, you probably just heard a double echo or whatever, because it was like knock, knock, the echo of the knock, knock, and then like 5-10 seconds later there was 3 knocks. So it wasn't even the same amount of knocks as I heard. But like obviously, like it was Northeast Wisconsin. I was not expecting it. Or I'm not saying, oh, that was Bigfoot. That had been Bigfoot. But it's more or less thinking of it and the paranormal side as who knocked back at me from back in the woods.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like who's out there?
Yeah, and that's kind of what it came to, was like, who's out there? Is there another person? Was it like we had neighbors, but like you know where my parents live, it's pretty rural. Like my closest,
definitely,
I have one neighbor on one side of me, and then it's probably half mile to a mile.
Which is actually funny because your neighbor is someone that's somehow connected to my family.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah. I forgot about that. But yeah, anyway, so that was just kind of that feeling
that,
of
that eeriness,
that eeriness of
the unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, like when it comes to fear, I think that's the biggest thing. I think all fear is based around the idea of the unknown. I think where the base root of fear is the unknown. Because if you think about the dark, you're not scared of the dark. You're scared of what you can't see in the dark. You're scared of what might be with you in the dark. You're not scared of dying. You're scared of because you don't know what happens after you're dead.
And I've kind of taught, or I've said who if it's a quote from what I heard from something, but it's kind of just what you said there. It's you're not afraid of being alone in the dark. It's that you're afraid that you aren't alone.
Exactly. Like I can sit in a dark room just fine, knowing I'm the only entity in that area that but the thing is, the creepiest thing about the dark, and it's definitely a play on your brain messing with you, you always feel like you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And another point to make too, not to bring it back too much to the spiritual side, I have so much to say about a bunch of stuff. This video is probably going to go a bit, if that's okay with you. So when it comes to the spiritual side of things, I see all these different paranormal videos, and I think about it. I'm like, even if 99,000 videos are fake, who's to say that 100,000 isn't real? There's so many videos out there. There's so much content. It's like, if there's this much content being generated around this subject, be it cryptid, paranormal, and yeah, maybe a lot of it's a cry for attention. They want to get their 5 minutes of fame, but there's got to be at least that one, you know? There's no way there's this much content coming out of this without it being at least there's something. There's at least something that's not being said or found, or it's being censored. There is something more. And when I think about that, it doesn't scare me. It's actually kind of like relieving for me to think that, because one of my biggest fears is that there is nothing else than what is in front of me. And that's because, like, I'm not as spiritual or religious as I used to be. I love studying religion. When it comes to theology and understanding different religions and all of it, Christianity, Buddhism, I love it all. I love to hear it, but I struggle to deal with the concepts because I'm I want to see it kind of person. But to see this much content, to see all this come out, it's like, even if you drastically eliminate all the fake content, you know there's got to be at least one real deal out there, because there's no way there's this much getting produced. And I know there's been a lot of hysteria throughout there was Roswell when it came to aliens. There was, like, throughout the 70s, there was a lot of tabloids that were pushing this kind of content constantly. But if you think about it, this is something that has been around for so long. And even talking about cryptids, like, do I believe in Bigfoot? I don't know. I wouldn't say I do. But I also am not going to leave that avenue closed for myself. If there's proof that comes out, then I'd be like, okay, there it is. There is what we all perceive Bigfoot to be, what it could have been, you know? And I always look at things with that kind of open mind perspective, because why should I, and like we just talked about this, why should I narrow myself? It's not going to hurt anyone if I choose to think that there might be more. And it's not going to hurt me or my way of thinking. Even if I become religious again, it still doesn't hurt my way of thinking. It's not blasphemous to believe that maybe there are angels and demons. I actually am taking a Hell, Demons, and Angels class right now in college. And it's really fascinating. And even my professor was talking about, like, he gets a lot of students who always share these stories with him. And he actually had one student, I guess, like, kind of argue with him. Well, not argue, because, like, one of the things we covered is that talking about the concept of angels and demons having physical forms, and kind of displayed throughout the Bible is that it's kind of an iffy area. And what my professor kind of explained is, from his knowledge, is that angels have a physical form. It's just not the same as ours. It's not a concept that can be grasped. It's not a concept that can be grasped by the human mind, because obviously it's something beyond human. And so he doesn't think that we can touch angels. But this student was adamantly like, "You're wrong, professor. I touched an angel. I know, because I literally touched one." I made me think of that old thing, like, touched by an angel. Well, you just guys out here touching angels. Fucking perv. No. Man, the first thing you do when you meet a divine being, you assault it. Way to go. No, but, like, jokes aside, yeah, it's that idea that it all comes down to the personal perspective of how we handle these things. And who's to say that maybe these things don't present themselves differently to different people? And how do we define it as psychosis? As some form of break in your mind, or some delusion, or illusion, versus reality, versus maybe this is an entity that is there. Maybe there is something that is more around. Like, who's to say if someone else was next to him, they would have seen it too? It could have just happened. He was by himself. And that's the thing, because it's the unknown. And that's why, like, a lot of people let the unknown scare them. I let it excite me. Because I leave my mind open to it. I leave my mind open to the unknown. Is there a lot of terrifying unknowns? Yes. There's a lot of scary unknowns out there. But where I believe where there's that fear, there's also a form of relief. There is understanding. There is knowledge to be gained. There is more growth and perception to be found in the world. And I don't know, man. Like, interesting one. Have you ever heard of Dogman?
Dogman, yes.
That's one of our Wisconsin cryptids, actually.
Yeah. I forget about that one.
So I have a lot of family up north, and I guess some, I don't know, it's one of the going to be those, all the uncle, aunts, sisters, boyfriends, hairdresser, blah, blah, blah kind of stories. But I guess one time we're outside their house, and they saw this Dogman, and it was just sitting there shaking a fucking tree like, I don't know, a maraca, just, I don't know. I wasn't shaking it like that, but it was apparently just going like just shaking the tree like a monster. Obviously, like, I don't know, it was mad at the tree, trying to claim its territory. Dogmen do it different than dogs, but no, they were adamant about it. They were like, I saw a Dogman. I saw this thing. I don't know if it was Dogman or Sasquatch or whatever the fuck I saw. I saw something, and it was shaking a goddamn tree. And like, they obviously went out the next day, because they weren't going out there at that point. They're gonna leave him be to do his whatever that is, weird night ritual. So they went out, and yeah, sure enough, like, I guess they had, like, I think they took some pictures. I don't know if I could ever get a hold of them. I'll find out. I'll reach out to my family. But yeah, there's just like branches like strewn across everywhere, and that tree was like almost uprooted. So it's like, it makes you wonder, like, what is reality versus like beyond? And the human mind is amazing, but it can play a lot of tricks on you. It can make you see things that you don't normally see. And
one thing being with how you said your mind can play tricks on you, and I've never personally tried it, but I've heard of people that have tried it, and I've heard, like, read about people who have done it or whatever. But one thing that people do is you literally sit in front of a mirror and just stare at your face and don't move. You just sit there and stare at yourself. Supposedly, after a certain amount of time, for some people it's 10, 15 minutes. Some people it's like 30 minutes to an hour. But eventually, your brain gets bored of looking at the same thing over and over and over, to the point that it manipulates your eyes and your face begins to distort, whether it gets distorted in a creepy way, or if your face starts to morph into maybe a different person and you start to look different, but whatever that might be. But there's just something I wanted to touch on, like how you said how your mind can play tricks on you. And it's weird to think that your brain, literally a thing that you control your thoughts, you control your movements, it subconsciously takes over because you're not doing anything. You're not thinking about anything. You're not moving your body. You're not exhausting any energy to do anything. So that your brain literally got bored to the point that it felt the means to manipulate your own face. And like I said,
it's crazy.
I don't know if it's something I'd ever try. I might just take people's word for it and be like, sure. But
I think I'd psych myself out, honestly, at that point, because I don't think I could stare at myself that long without freaking myself out. Like, because something so benign and simple sounds terrifying to me. Like, if there was like a dude who burst into my room right now with a knife, I could handle that. At least I know he's physical, he's there. But like, something about staring at myself creeps me out more than the idea of that. I think it's because it's the tangible versus the intangible. It's the idea of like, I'm intentionally trying to like pretty much brain jack myself, and I don't like to fuck with my brain, because I feel like if you fuck with your brain's gonna fuck back even harder. And that's even showing like, and I don't mean to bring drugs into our conversation. This is an adult conversation. I know people who have done drugs, obviously. And some of the experiences they've had, and I know you even listen to Joe Rogan, and he talks about his experiences, and he talks with these other famous people about their drug use and about their experiences with drugs like DMT and stuff like that. And it's crazy because I know a lot of people who used hallucinogens, and they're not like the druggy burnout you think they are. These are business people. These are people who actually are contributing to society. They just decided they wanted to try something one time in their college years or high school, and their stories are fascinating to me because I find it interesting to see what happens when you fuck with the brain. And sometimes it goes well. Sometimes it goes okay. And like I've even read stories about people who have used DMT and ayahuasca, stuff like that, and wanted to stay away from mescaline. That's it. I know you won't do drugs, but for anyone who's watching, stay the fuck away from mescaline because it messes with you, from what I've heard. And DMT can fuck with you too. And it's almost weird, like the way they talk about it. It's almost like, at least this one article I read, this lady who did DMT, she didn't talk about DMT like a drug. She talked about it like almost like an experience, like a spiritual kind of thing. It was weird. And like, I was like, man, you're just doing drugs. What are you talking about? But then I hear her explanation of it. She's talking about like how like the first time she did it, it was just really awesome. Like she felt like she was in this trip for like almost like an hour. But the thing is, she was only in it for like 5 minutes, and she saw some crazy shit. And I'm not going to get into that. That's a long story. But she did it a couple more times, and things got weird. It got bad for her because she abused this, and she's essentially abusing her brain's ability to, I guess, sense reality. And of course, her brain is not going to be okay with this. And it's weird I talk about the brain as a separate entity when the brain is the core functioning organ that is your existence. And it's weird because we almost sometimes I feel like we separate ourselves from our brain. We just think about it as another organ, but our brain is literally what drives us. It's where all this comes out of. None of this would be obviously possible. Like you can lose certain parts of body, like your brain shuts off, you're done. Like your heart shuts off, you get a little bit more time, but you're still done. But because that's pumping blood, but your brain is literally what's firing all this to happen. Me talking right now, and even the way you're seeing colors, it all plays a part in every single aspect, and it's crazy. And so I would rather not fuck with it. And so it's like that's why I could never look at a mirror like that, because I know I'm almost teasing my brain. I'm almost trying to tempt it to fuck with me, and I no. Why would I want to fuck with myself?
Yeah, for sure.
And honestly, like thinking about cryptids and stuff like that, I used to love researching them. Not because I thought they were real, but it's just awesome. It's honestly cool.
Creepypasta, going through all that.
Those ones are definitely fake, and I gotta give those people creative points. And honestly, I think a lot of it, the really good ones, they draw from some either other story they've heard or some underlying thing that has happened to them, but not to that extreme. Because that's the thing with storytelling. Everyone blows stories a little bit up more than what they are. You know, like everyone starts at a base point where it's like, yeah, I saw a dog, and all of a sudden it evolves into, yeah, there was a wolf staring me down. I had a shotgun. It had a knife. Like, why'd the wolf have a knife? It didn't need it. But that's the thing with storytelling. It evolves and it expands out. And I think that's why I like to see how people's perceptions of their encounters in these cryptid moments kind of just become these fantastical stories. But I love to get to the root. I love to chase the origin. Like you look at a lot of these stories, they all start somewhere, and you can trace them. You can look back. You can find it. If you want to put the time in, say you want to figure out why Sasquatch is such a big phenomenon, you can trace it back to somewhere, it's either a hoax or somewhere where it started, but then you can find out where the truth lies. You can find out what part of this is grounded in reality. And I think that's so cool that like if you shift through everything, and what's his name, Tom DeLonge, the lead singer of Blink-182, he does a podcast with Joe Rogan where he talks a lot about aliens, and he has his whole foundation. And it's interesting because like when I first started watching his podcast with Joe Rogan, I was kind of like, man, this dude does a lot of drugs. He's a rock star. Like, there's no way. But then I find out, dude, this guy's working with like literally people who worked at NASA. He's working with high government officials in his, I think it's like To the Stars Foundation or something along those lines, or Beyond the Stars. And it was actually his foundation that was responsible for that recent video leak of the UFOs by the Navy. And all UFO means, they're not saying it's extraterrestrial. They're just saying these are unidentified flying objects. These are crafts that they cannot identify with their technology. And I find this fascinating because it's like, and I understand, technology is not always the most advanced. It's kind of hard to tell shit, but I find it weird that they could not tell what those objects were. I think it's interesting, and I think it's weird that his foundation is behind it when he himself said that he's supposed to be this voice for the government, essentially, now to slowly trickle information into society about aliens. And it's weird, and I recommend anyone to go tune in and watch that podcast. It's awesome. I enjoyed sitting down and watching all of it. So yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to hog the screen here. If you got anything more,
no, you're good. You're good. Okay. I'm glad to listen to whatever you got. I know
okay.
It'd be a lot of give and take, and I'd talk for 5-10 minutes without you saying anything, and vice versa. So
okay, I just feel like sometimes I get stuck in those lines. No, because I can talk for hours. Honestly,
no,
if you
yeah, and I'm glad you do. That's why I don't cut you off, man. I'm glad to hear about all this stuff. I was going to mention something about Tom DeLonge, but I forgot. Maybe I'll come back to it if I remember.
I just want to make sure I'm 100% sure that's his name, but for the sake of not feeling like an idiot, I'm going to
Google it's Tom DeLonge. It's like DE and then capital LONG.
Yeah.
It might be an E at the end of it.
Yep, Tom DeLonge. Yep, with an E at the end. All right, perfect. So,
but yeah, I'm just kind of looking at one thing I wanted to mention, and it's actually something that kind of like stuck with me for a while. It's not even a personal experience. It's basically going down a rabbit hole a little too far and kind of like looking at too many videos and reading about too much stuff. And it's the idea of Slender Man. And kind of that whole genre, or not even genre, that whole idea of who Slenderman is and his whole story. And
it's something, existence.
Yeah, and it's something we actually had. Alpha was in prior episode, or if it's just something.
Marble Hornets, we talked about.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, and that's something that I was thinking about going through again because it's been probably close to 4 or 5 years since I've watched through that last. And obviously back then I was more or less watching it just to get look for something creepy to watch. But now knowing what I know now and just kind of having my knowledge of this kind of paranormal and area of the unknown, I feel like I'd be able to pick up on more things in those because there's 50, 60 some entries within that series, and not every entry has an encounter with Slenderman. So, sometimes there's 4 or 5 entries before you see him. There's a lot of underlying stuff. There's just a whole lot going on. And I feel like back when I first watched it, I was more or less just watching it for those encounters, those spooky encounters, just to see him and be like, oh, there he is. So I feel like if I were to go back through and watch, in all those gaps in between the encounters that this person has with them, it'd be, I think, like I said, it'd just be interesting to go through all that and kind of pick up on the things I missed the first time. But one thing I want to touch on, and it kind of goes back into how we were talking about, your brain playing tricks on you, and your eyes, you think you see stuff. Yeah, it was 4 or 5 years ago when I was kind of in this rabbit hole of Slenderman, and it was probably a 3 to 6 month period that I just was always reading stuff, watching videos, trying to find people who supposedly had encounters, and all this kind of stuff. And it actually fell into about this time of the year because I remember I was hunting. It was deer season for hunting. So, and there's times when I was out in the woods and in my stand hunting or whatever, and my mind kept playing tricks on me, and I kept thinking through like the edge of a tree line or through the fog or because it was just getting dusk or just getting dawn, like my eyes kept playing tricks on me and I kept thinking I saw Slender Man. And
I'm paying
obviously
attention. Just so you know, I'm looking down because I have to research a story. I'm gonna tell you, and it might freak you out a bit. After, I'm sure you've probably heard about it, but I'm gonna jar a memory after this. But continue to talk, okay? Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, so it was just kind of one of those instances where I thought I kept seeing him, but obviously I knew I didn't because like I would see it and I'd sit and stare at it and stare at it and stare at it, and then 5-10 minutes later I'd realize it's a tree, it's a branch, it's tall grass, it's whatever it might be. So it was just one of those moments where because I was so invested in this topic and my mind is so wrapped around it that my brain just was fucking with me. Kind of like you said, if you try to test the limits of your brain, you're gonna find out more than you want to. Just like with all these ideas of people want to find out, oh, what's the government hiding? I wish they would just come up with this list of this is what we're hiding from you. But guess what? We as civilians, as individuals living in this country, we wouldn't be able to wrap our minds around 90% of whatever they would share with us. Whether it's, yeah, UFOs are real. This is what we're hiding in Area 51. Spoiler, we are doing remote viewing. We watch everything you guys do. Like, these are all concepts that, as much as there are conspiracies and there's touchy bits of proof and evidence about them, yeah, I saw the guy standing behind you too. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, no, that's my buddy Chuck.
Chuck,
what it do, baby girl? No,
but yeah, so I'll just kind of wrap that up with that. That was just kind of I had wrote down about Slender Man and just kind of that rabbit hole I went into, and kind of want to just give a shout out to Marble Hornets and just kind of that series and how well that was put together.
So it's interesting you bring up Slender Man, especially here. You know, we are in our home state, Wisconsin. We are actually, and I'm pretty sure the only state we've had this happen in. So in Waukesha in 2014, there was two 12-year-old girls. They lured their friend into the woods and they stabbed her like 19 times to prove that Slender Man was real. They were trying to appease him.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
So, that happened back in 2014, and it's interesting because, you know, obviously, like, that's the thing about Slender Man and stuff like that, like big things that get that big, it's almost like, man, if you take someone who's not mentally well and you feed them this kind of stuff, it can distort their already distorted perception of reality. And it can be dangerous for some people, obviously. And I'm not saying this is even, not all mental health is like this, obviously. As I'm a full-on practice, like, I am an advocate for, mental health. Like, don't think everyone's crazy just because they say they have mental health issues. That's not the case. And they are just normal people too, just living their lives. But when you take someone who's untreated and unchecked, and they get this stuff kind of fed to them, especially at 12, and an impressionable mind like that, and it gets distorted the wrong way because their mind is doing the same thing that your mind does, and except they don't have the limitations or the limiters in their head to realize, like, all right, I'm pushing myself too far. I'm taking this too far, especially if there's something that's unchecked or unrealized, and horrible things like this can happen. And it's awful. It is, and I'm pretty sure the girls survived their friend that they lured in, and it's horrible that this happened to her. And I hope wherever she is, she's doing well now. And it's sad that some things like this can happen. But and honestly, I think that's where it comes down to. It's like, when do you draw the line at pushing your brain? Because I know there's certain people out there who drive themselves crazy. These are perfectly sane people, but they drive themselves crazy fighting to understand something. And if they actually break through, or maybe even think they broke through, it can destroy that safety net that's around your brain, that those barriers, and who knows what could happen to their mental health at that point. And then that's why I say tread carefully into this area. Not for the sake of like, oh, you might discover something you're not supposed to know, but because you could push yourself too far. Everything has its limits. And I'm one of those people that like almost like religiously worships the idea of moderation in everything. Be moderate in your thinking. Be moderate in the way you approach stuff. Obviously, when you need to take action in aspects of your life, do it. But don't drive yourself to the point where there's no return, because you can. Your brain can do a lot of amazing things. You yourself can do a lot of amazing things, but a lot of those things can become very terrifying if you push it the wrong way. And I think that's the thing we are very resilient even as a species. It's so fascinating. Human beings are so fragile yet so tough. And our minds are built to handle some of the most, like, we can endure some of the most horrible atrocities in this world and yet be broken by the most benign things. Like, you could survive something horrendous, but then break. And that's the thing. So just be careful for anyone who gets into this stuff, who really ventures into this realm. Be careful about the avenues you take. Be careful about the virtual roads you look on, because the internet can lead you to some very interesting places when you try to search beyond the normal. And I want to touch on this point, and I know it kind of deviates away from the paranormal, but like things like the dark web, the onion routers, stuff like that going on there, and trying to find, and all the dark web realistically is websites that haven't been monitored by Google or any of these other search engines, that haven't been filtered by them yet. And there's a lot of fascinating information out there, but there's a lot of dark and twisted things that exist in this world. But don't drive yourself crazy thinking about it, because there's a lot of good in the world too. There's a lot of nice stuff out there. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a message too. When you choose to take on this venture into the paranormal, be it telekinesis, stuff like that, like psychics and fortune tellers, don't give people your money. Don't do that. Even if you believe in this stuff, don't give people your money for the sake of it. If someone actually had some form of cognitive ability to where they can actually have a sixth sense or something beyond that, they would not do it in a monetary way. For one, if they were legitimate, they'd probably be in a lab somewhere right now, because shit, I'd throw them in a lab and study them. I want to I want to know what the hell happened there. But I'd be nice. I'd be a good scientist about it. But I did the double smack of the lips because I'm questioning myself right now, because I was like, would I be unethical? No. But that's the thing. When we look at these concepts of these espers, these people who have interesting abilities, and this is one of my favorite things to look up to. And I can tell a lot of these videos are fake, but it's cool if you can find a really good one that's edited. Like, even if you can, and I like being able to question it. I like being able to question ideas. Like, are there people out there who can see ghosts? Are there people out there who can communicate through ways beyond the normal, or do things that are beyond the normal? And I've always been a superhero fanatic. I love superheroes, supervillains, all of it. And I've mentioned several times, I love to play the bad guy in video games, because in real life, I'm a good guy. I don't like to see evil in this world. But it's fun to play in a virtual perspective, because it's like I try to understand the duality of it all. But ultimately, I love the concept that there is something beyond the ordinary. I always have. It's such a fascinating category or subject to study and research. And I don't know. I like to believe that there's more out there. I like to, because, like I said, I fear more I feel the idea of knowing it all more than I do the unknown. Obviously, I have the pursuit of knowledge, but could you imagine actually knowing all this at once? Like you explained earlier, if the government came out tomorrow and they're like, aliens are real, we can control people through their brains, or something along those lines, or we have people in our custody right now who have powers beyond your imagination. And it's like, our minds would not be able to comprehend. For one, we'd think it's fake. We'd call bullshit. We'd be like, no, this is a power. Like, you're just trying to like do whatever you're trying to do. We would just call it bullshit. And that's why the government buries whatever they need to bury. Because I do believe there is more. And I do believe there are things that have been buried. Do I think there's UFOs that have been found? I don't know. I don't know. But I do believe there's something that we don't know. As the people, I believe in the U.S. there are things we don't know. And does it have to be paranormal? No. There's just stuff that is kept from the normal citizen, like you elaborated earlier, because of the idea that it would paint not just our government in a different light, but our whole understanding of our existence here in our country. There's a lot of things that people don't even know about, like that the U.S. has done internationally. Like if like I'm another thing I'm looking into is international politics. I have a class in it right now, and understanding us as a player in the world, we're not the good guy. In America, obviously, we paint ourselves as much as we can as the good guy. As you get older, you start to realize like war is war. There's no good guy in war. And did we do as evil things as others? Not necessarily, but has America done evil things? Yes. Do we hide shit? Yes. And are there reasons for it? Yes. And that's why I don't push. I don't need all of that leaked out to me at once. I don't want that understanding all at once. But if I do want to seek out answers, if I do want to enjoy the hunt, I will. I will continue to search and continue to expand on the subject, and I want to learn more about not just what I already know or what has already been known by someone at some point, but what we're still trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the paranormal, the first thing that comes to mind is always going to be the idea of ghost, heaven, hell, spirits, angels, demons, stuff along those lines. And there's so much that even goes into that category itself too. Coming back to that whole subject, like what would even cause that to happen? Why would there be an entity that exists between this plane or this realm? And there's another idea that's entertained too, that it's not that they're ghosts, but what we're seeing is glimpses of a different reality breaking through. Like there's a time distortion. And I love the idea, and that's an entertaining concept. Do I think it's fact? No. Do I dismiss it? No. But the idea that like we see these phantoms or these moments that, and it's not a dead person, it's someone in a different reality, and who knows, maybe they're seeing you and they think you're the ghost, you know? Like and it's such an interesting concept that like, is there glitches that can happen in reality?
Mm-hmm.
What is reality? Is reality augmented? Are we artificial? Are we just some part of some bigger design? And even when you look at how expansive the universe is and how little understanding we do have of life outside of this planet, we have learned a lot more about other planets, obviously, within the recent, like, last, I don't know how many years because of the technological revolution, but there's still so much more we don't know. And then there's only what we are allowed to know, and then there's only what we see on the surface, and yet there's still stuff we can seek out. We can go read books. We can go find info that we haven't seen before. And I don't know, like it just, I don't know. There's so many cool concepts to entertain. There's even like theories in science, like string theory, like stuff along those lines that like, or like the idea that like, so reality is like this, and then there's a reality above it, and like it's a reality sandwich essentially. There's just different realities, and that when they compress is what caused the Big Bang, and like there's just so many different kinds of theories that are out there, and that's why I continue to question. I continue to search and not doubt and not dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I can prove it's fake, then it's fake. If I can prove it's real, it's real. Anything that falls between that is fair game for my knowledge. It's fair game for me to understand. Do I have to convince myself it's real? No, I don't, because I can just know it as what it is.
Mm-hmm. And I think one big thing, and you kind of touched on it with how, as much as people are like, "Oh, I wish the government would just come out and say everything they're hiding from us," at the same time, we hope they don't, because it allows us to continue to play detective. It allows us to continue to watch these videos, talk to people in certain areas of whatever field that they're trying to get more information on, read these articles, go out and try to explore for themselves. If everybody was able to access that amount of information, who knows where the world would go. And one kind of interesting thing that I guess I never really, or I hadn't thought about it, I don't know if I heard it from somewhere where I saw it, but we're all exposed to roughly the same amount of information. It's just how we digest it. So it's funny how like you and I have been exposed to a lot of the same information as like a surgeon or an engineer or an architect. But like they became an architect because they perceived information and this world in that way that created them to be that person. Exactly. So it's crazy to think that like we all have the same potential because we're all exposed. We all have the opportunity to see the same information, whether that's someone who's gifted that has a lot of technology because whatever, maybe their family's more well off, so they get to pick up their phone and just go on Google. Well, you could say, oh, what about someone who doesn't have a phone? Well, they can read books, they can read magazines. There's so many different avenues of trying to find this information, and we all have the same opportunity to access it. So it's just crazy to think that, again, how us sitting here in our own lives, our own occupations, with what we're doing with our life, we're exposed to the same as the president of the United States or somebody sitting in prison who killed 20 people. Like we're all interconnected in that same way.
And I'd say that's a big thing that honestly the internet really has driven that point forward. That we all have access to so much knowledge, good or bad, however you see that knowledge. Because I don't like to define things as good or bad. I like to, I do to a perspective, like to a certain perspective. I look at it like this: things are good or bad based off what the present day is telling you what good or bad is. So you go back hundreds of years, beheadings, yeah, it's horrible, but it was more common practice during those wars. People were stabbing the shit out of each other. People were shooting each other with crossbows and bows. It was brutal. It was a different period. There was a different understanding. There was a point where they thought the world was so small. They thought the world was nothing more than, I'd say, like Texas and a couple of those other states combined. Like they thought the world was that big, and they continued to grow and learn more. But I think there's a need for time with growth. You need time, and the way we're expanding and advancing our knowledge, that's why like we're not retaining everything we see. You know, we're retaining ads, we're retaining the surface bullshit that we all see on social media. And I think that's like where a lot of conflict is, because a lot of people don't bother, and this is not for that majority that do, who pick up a book, who research. There's obviously people, well, like you said, there's architects out there, there's doctors. They all have a tunnel vision perspective on what they want. They all lock their mind in, and then they have their passions. They have their side little when I talk about the tunnel concept, when I say tunnel vision, I think I should clarify. When I look at tunnel vision, I don't think of it as the same way as other people do. When I think you are tunnel visioned on something, you have branching little intertwining tunnels that are your hobbies and interests, but you're not trying to look at the broader picture. Me, I try to stray off my tunnel as much as I can. I try to be like, all right, this is what I know. But then there's a path right there that I haven't walked yet. There's an avenue I have not seen yet. I want to know what that is. I want to see it from that perspective. Because, and that's another thing too, it's like you look at any conflict, there's always going to be two radically different stories. There's always going to be, and that's like even with the whole people who believe in the paranormal and people who don't. There's going to be two radical sides of it. And then there's going to be everything that falls in between. It's always a spectrum. Everything exists on a spectrum, and that's why I always try to fall moderate on that spectrum, where I'm not leading one side or the other. I hear both sides. I get to hear both sides, but I don't have to make a decisive, I don't have to put myself on one footing above the other. I like to maintain my equal ground, and I like to understand and educate myself in a way where it's like, no, I think this is better than that. Unless I know definitively it's better than that. Like, I'm not going to tell you a bow is better in combat than, I don't know, a 50 cal machine gun. It's not. You're not going to kill more people with a bow in combat than a 50 cal machine gun. Or not to use something so violent, you're not going to tell me this holds more water than a gallon container. It doesn't. It's fact. It's scientifically proven, visually proven. A gallon holds more than that can. And then, but anything outside the realm of what is proven is fair game, is moderate. It's where I maintain my moderate position, or things I don't educate myself on because I don't have a right to speak on them. And that's one thing I've clarified before talking about other stuff. Like, I won't speak beyond what my understanding is ever of something, because then you just sound like an asshole, in my opinion. You just sound like an asshole. You sound like you think you know more without actually taking the time to educate yourself. I'm not going to argue with a surgeon about what to do when he is operating on someone. He may be doing it wrong. I don't know, but I'm not going to argue it. Like, he's holding a mallet up. Are you ready for your anesthesia? Don't you have like chemicals? I'm the surgeon. Like, okay, man, whack away. Like, but no, like, that's a more of an extreme jokey moment. But the whole thing kind of rounds back to the unknown for me. Like I said, I used to be so afraid of it. I used to be so terrified of the unknown. It used to be so horrifying to me. Like, the idea of death terrified the shit out of me, dude. Like, thinking about, like, man, because, you know, from a pretty much not strict, but very straightforward Christian upbringing, you already have 2 destined places you're going. You know, it's either you're going to heaven or you're going to hell. There's no cut or dry, unless you're one of those Christian religions that believes in purgatory, and then that's just kind of that middle ground area for everybody that's kind of like just stuck there waiting. And then, but beyond that, it's like when you choose to broaden your mind and think outside that limited scope and try to see things from all angles, you get a better understanding of not just the spiritual, but a better understanding of yourself too. You get to figure out where you want to go, and it helps you discover yourself better as a person too. Because after taking that time to be like, all right, I'm done looking this way, I'm trying to look this way all around me. And you get to this point where it's like, okay, now I have a broader knowledge, and now I kind of know where I want to be, what I want to learn, where I want to emphasize my education, where I want to expand on myself. And even like with the paranormal, people always kind of choose a subcategory. It's even like with anything, like horror. Like, there's people that say like, oh, I like slashers, or like I like psychological horror, or I like zombies. You know, like there's always a direction people lean more one way or the other when it comes to when you finally hit that decisive factor, or what you finally figure out what you enjoy or perceive as more enjoyable. And so when it comes to the paranormal, and I just want to talk on this one more time because I like to reiterate it, don't drive yourself crazy at 3 o'clock in the morning reading shit that's scary. You're going to see scary shit because it's 3 in the morning. You're tired. You're not seeing ghosts, unless you might be. I don't know. Maybe you do have a haunted house, but you're not. And that's the thing. There's that middle ground. You never know. But don't do it, because even if you are seeing what you're seeing, you're only terrifying yourself more. Instead of trying to understand the situation, you're only going to scare the shits out of yourself more. Go into it with an open mind. Research with an open mind, but don't hit that switch in your brain that goes, it's time to be scared. Because if you hit that switch, you're going to either completely close yourself off from the idea and be like, nope, I don't ever want to fuck with it again. It scared the shit out of me. I don't like it. Or you're going to breach this point in your perception of things where you might even cause yourself to have freakouts, and that's not healthy. So just go with it in a moderate way. Make sure the lights are on. Play some weird 80s music while you're looking this shit up, you know, like something that just lightens the mood, and enjoy it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the kind of scariness of it, the unknowing, and continue to adventure and explore.
Yes.
I feel like that's a good place to end, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I keep looking at everything like to talk about, and we've kind of just went through everything. And I mean, we talked a lot longer than I guess I was expecting to. I figured this would be longer than like a regular 20-30 minute episode, but I mean, we talked about so much shit, but yet we haven't really repeated ourselves a whole lot, or like backtracked on a whole lot of stuff, which is good. Yeah,
and the only time I actually chose to repeat myself is when I reiterate I want to repeat myself, because I do want to get certain messages across, because I do fear what these things can do. Like I just told that story about the poor girl who got stabbed because of the Slender Man case. And yes, I know those 12-year-olds, which is even more shocking. Imagine my 12-year-old ass and one of our other friends, hey, let's go in those creepy woods over there. Yeah. And you're like, is that a knife? No. It's a banana. Let's go. It's like, no. You're over here like, I'm pretty sure that's a fucking knife.
Yeah.
Like, no, like that's horrifying. So just don't overdo it. Anybody, please don't overdo it. Don't give money to fortune tellers. Don't sit there and think you can appease some old god by slaughtering your friends or family. Whoever sees this, I know this is for the normal brain. Most of you guys obviously realize, hey, I'm not gonna murder people for Cthulhu or fucking Belrog or whatever the fuck. I just said Belrog. I'm pretty sure that's for Lord of the Rings. But like, enjoy investigating. It's awesome. It's so fun. But yeah, and continue to keep an open mind. So
I agree.
With that, signing off.
All right.
And hopefully I see you on Xbox.
Yeah.
If you're playing Black Ops, I'll be on Rocket League fucking it up. So
sounds good. Maybe I'll just join your party and we can just.
That's what I was thinking. We'll just keep talking because I don't want to be alone right now.
No, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, I have a wife in the other room. I have a cat in the house. Poor Mike is all alone.
No, I got someone tied up in my closet.
Oh.
No. All
right.
No, they're not tied up. They're handcuffed.
All right.
I'm just fucking around. For anyone who's tuning, I just realized we're still recording. If you put that part on, I do not have any. That's my closet over there. Oh, and I actually got one more creepy story for you since we're still recording. So, you know my ex. Just awesome person. Things just didn't work out. The good one, not that one.
You go like you killed her or something.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, she's gone now. Old news. We don't talk about that. She's the one who's not in my closet. No. No. So my ex Taylor, we were one time snapping, and I was just playing video games. It was so nonchalant. And like, also, I have more people around me than you. I live in a whole apartment complex, so I'm good. I'll just go bang on doors like a wild man. But anyways, make some friends. But we were snapping. I was playing video games, and I snapped her, and she's like, "What the fuck is that?" I was like, she's fucking with me. Here we go. Like, I was like, she's gonna start to psych me out. I did something to her. She wants to mess with my head. And I was like, what? And she's like, what the fuck was that behind you? And I was like, my sweatpants? Because there was like a pair of my sweatpants in the background. And she's like, no. I was like, are you gonna tell me what it is? She's like, I'm scared too. And I'm like, that makes me more scared. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I got a little bit more like, what did you see? And then, so she's like, Michael, I saw a face behind you. And I was like a friendly face? like a Gerber baby smiley happy face? Like, she's like, no. She said it looked like the face from Insidious. Like, it looked like something freaky. So I was like, great, I got fucking retarded Darth Maul hanging out in my room now. I was like, fuck. Another one to add to the list, I guess. And I was like, are you sure you saw what you saw? And she's like, yes, I wish I would have screenshotted it. Oh, no, because we were FaceTiming. That's what it was. We were FaceTiming. Yeah, so that's why she saw it, and she didn't screenshot it in time because it disappeared. She's like, I know what I saw 100%. I saw it looked like there was a face. It looked like someone was, like, standing back. So, like, they were, like, back into, like, my left corner, like, right there. And I was, like, this with my phone, kind of, like, doing one of these. And I guess they were, like, right there. Yeah, so.
That's fucked.
Yup. Time to go be all alone now. Or am I?
Yeah, I'll join you. I'll keep you company.
Yeah. If I don't join in 5 minutes, it's too late. Oh, man. Time to watch scary videos so I don't sleep tonight.
Yeah. Hey.
I'm going to be sitting with a cross.
There's one you mentioned watching scary videos. I don't know if it's a channel you've ever explored, but it's one that I always find myself coming back to. It's called Nuke's Top 5.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a lot of nukes. I've also seen a lot of chills, unfortunately.
Oh, chills, yeah.
Got...
Burger King or lettuce.
I can't even do it, dude. I hate it. It sounds like you got hit in the head with a hammer. If he ever watches this, fuck your voice. Nah, you made it big. Good for you, bro. By talking like that, like you sound like my printer, Melf.
functioning. I don't even know if that makes sense, but that's what I came up with because my printer's sitting next to me. He literally just sounds like he pronounces the words wrong in the wrong places.
Yeah.
And, like, he came up with some good content, though, because, if he's still able to get millions of views on his videos. And if he does see this, Chills, your singing career is never going anywhere. I'm sorry, bud.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that he made a fucking music video. That's
right. Oh, but then there's him, and then there's that bald guy. I can't remember his name. I love his videos, too. Some of them get kind of crappy, though. That's kind of why I got away from watching his. But yeah, anyone who's just go on YouTube, look up scary shit. Not the scary pop-up shit. That's different. That's a whole different kind of fear we'll cover eventually. Because those gave me a lot of fucked up nightmares for a while. Fuck my dad for what he put me through. Did I ever tell you that story?
We'll
save that one. We'll save that one for another video. We'll do a horror, like a true fear video. I think that'd be a cool concept to entertain. Like not just this paranormal
fear and jump scares and
fear in general and how the human mind comprehends and how we handle it. I think that'd be a cool running video. So
yeah, I agree. All right, man. Well,
right, sweet.
We'll end it there, and yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
On the next box.
See ya.